Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Dadville. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with Dave and me. John. Yeah, it's a Dadville time. It's Dave and John. It's Dave and John.
Dadville and Dadville tonight.
200.
Guys, if you feel through your AirPods, through your car speakers, through
your beats,
through the speaker
candies
on your phone because you've got it, you're just out in the grocery store with it, with Dadville's just on your speaker and you don't care.
You don't care.
You don't care.
Yeah, you're evangelizing.
You don't care.
People around you care and they don't like it.
Yeah,
but you don't care.
But you don't care.
If you feel, you started that sentence.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah,
if you feel the joy from John and I right now, John, obviously a little more muted joy. Mine, full, wide open,
aggressive
joy. It is because, folks, as John hinted in his song earlier, this is our 200. Let's give that one more time. How excited am I, you ask?
The irony. We're slowly getting this down. It's our 200th.
Of course I would fumble through the
episode.
That was God. He's like, you need to be humble, son.
Be humble.
This is, as John just eloquently said, and I drunkenly said, our 200th episode. That's a hard word. 200th episode.
Dave.
Yeah.
What has it been now? Like coming up on 7 years ago.
No.
It could be 7 years ago. Let's just say it's 7 years ago to this day.
Love that.
I was sitting in this exact seat. You were sitting in that exact seat. And you were like, should we do a podcast called Dadville?
And at this, can we give props where props are due? Shout out to our boy Seth Philpott. Seth EP, one of our dearest friends, one of the best human beings that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Proud father now
That's
to
right.
a beautiful, handsome little son of a gun, Hank. Shout out to Hank. He'll be on the pod soon. Hammer and Hank. I'm going to keep going. I can't stop. Thank you very much. He said to me, for those who know the genesis of this podcast, he said, "Hey, you and John should do this," because I talked about an idea, and that is how
I imagine when you describe that. I imagine you at the end of like your hair, you're pulling your hair out. You've written countless names down, thrown them away.
Yeah.
Called people.
Yeah.
Dead end. And he's
LeBron
like,
is not available. LeBron is not available.
He's still playing. He's got a few good years left in him. And Seth was finally like, why don't you call John?
Who is the one person you haven't thought of?
Yeah.
And I said, my mom. And he said, after that, why?
Yeah.
Why your mom? And I said, because it's called Dadville. And then he gave a good pushback.
Yeah, there's some solid
That's not true. When he
said
said that, of course, I was like, of course it's John. But here we are, John. 200.
Crazy.
200 episodes. 200 just of us talking. Just filling the world with just words. Mostly not, on my part, articulated well. Excitement. Curiosity that's not as articulate as your curiosity. One of the jokes that we have, just to let you in behind the veil of the Dadville, when we get together to prep for episodes, the joke is, because it's true, that if you look at John's notes, so, if we're having a guest on, John will have these just unbelievably thoughtful questions. And they're usually paragraphs, like, they're just gorgeous questions. Like, in reading your book, you grew up in Nebraska, and something I've always wondered about growing up in a topography that's so flat is it would feel like the world is that big. Did you find that as a kid when you looked out your window, because you saw there were limitless Sky, did you feel the limitless nature of life, and that's why you ended up being a, author?
Did that inform your surfing?
Did that inform? Yeah. I literally, y'all, I'm not kidding. It will say, ask about wife in my note. Or it'll say Nebraska? Question mark.
The truth is, it's true what you're saying. I will come in with a paragraph, and you will have 3 words. But the truth is, it's the same question, and it's a funny irony because in the podcast, I say 3 questions, and you say a paragraph.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
When we're prepping,
that's true.
I type out all my thoughts.
Yeah.
As if I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And you do the opposite, which is so funny.
Yeah. I've actually never thought about it that way. So what we decided for y'all, this is really fun. What we decided to sort of celebrate this 200. Is it the end? It feels like maybe this is it the last? It's our last episode.
What's too bad about it is that you're not stumbling over 2. It's 100th. So when we get to 300th, you're going to still have problems. It's not going to be until we hit 1,000.
Why is that so hard? 200.
It is kind of a hard word.
It's a weird word. What we decided to do, which has been really, really fun. John had a great idea and was like, "Hey, what if we kind of sort of just recap like moments that we loved, funny moments, all these things." So we're going to walk y'all through some of these moments, how we classified them in different ways. This was John's idea, by the way, to do it this way, which I think is really great.
This is not true.
It is true.
I had a little bit of an idea, and then you added on to it, and then we went back and forth. That's why this works.
It's what we do. It's what we do,
why
John.
This works.
So what we're gonna do? I actually wrote some asterisks for me.
Uh-huh.
For me,
see, now that word you say fine.
I do because it's got a curse word in it. Is I wanted to say these to sort of give me a way out because I'm going to get busted. I have a really bad memory.
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, we can't. This is not like we didn't spend all the time and listen through all 200 episodes and then we combed through the best.
You didn't. I just want to be clear.
I did not.
Okay.
I want it stated for the record that I did not because there is going to be some moment or a whole episode that someone's going to be like, well, what about the whatever episode? And I'm going to be like, how did I not?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
So
addendum 1.
Yeah.
I'm going to get so many memories wrong, so be kind to me.
Yeah.
Second thing, and I thought you'd get a real kick out of this. I went through this really makes me I went through all the notes, all of our Dadville notes. And so I scrolled all the way to the to the bottom of my notes app. And I was just and so there were all these notes of the beginning, sort of our first conversations and ideas and stuff. And one of the things I found that I had typed was, so we had subject headings. It was ask about parenting, ask about marriage or whatever. And one of them said that I had typed house and home dash. I swear this is what it says. Lawn, roaches, snakes, upkeep, robbed. That's the whole note. And I just was I just love that these humble beginnings. Lawn, roaches, which obviously roaches is a John thing. Snakes, which is a me thing. Upkeep, and then robbed. I just love that I was it's a great jumping off point.
Yeah.
This house and home with these subjects.
I imagine you being okay, so 5-10 minutes on this first thing. Robbed, that'll be our last 30 minutes.
That'll be the victory lap. And then I had, in quotes, at the end of this, literally the last thing on this note, one of the first notes we ever brainstormed was, it just said, we don't know what we're doing. That's literally all it said. And yes. I was I feel like
that should be on every single note.
I feel like Jason,
copy paste.
200th episode -- we don't know what we're doing. I think you've got the title for the episode right there because there's no way.
It should be we, in parentheses, still don't know what we're doing.
Well, I just kept reading right now, and I forgot that the back half says, this goes for having a podcast and for having children. That was literally the thing that said at the bottom of this note.
Gosh. Yes.
Okay, so let's start here. We're going in. We're going to be a little all over the place here. 200th. How has Dadville? I'm asking you. How has Dadville impacted you as a parent? We're going big. We're coming. That's a big question.
It's gotten me out of the house more.
Oh, okay.
Kind of away from the kids, which is good.
Yeah.
To have a break.
Yeah.
It's funny. One of the things that I take from our 200 episodes in a really good way. This sounds like it's nihilistic sort of, but it's like there's so many different ways that this can look, and there's so many different experiences that people have, and you just don't know. It forces me to just kind of have my hands up and open.
Yeah.
There have definitely been several times where I have been reminded that, like, I am their dad. I am the perfect dad
for them,
for Luca and Livy.
Yeah.
I am the perfect dad. Which, truths that are really, really true are often so simple, and you just have to be reminded constantly of those simple things. That when you're reminded of it, you're like, oh, this is such a simple truth. I'll retain this, but somehow you don't. And so I feel like the podcast has been a really good, one of the functions has been just to be constantly reminded of that.
Yep. Yep.
And I've said this many times before, but one of our earliest episodes was Stephen James talking about how often our worries about our kids are just our own baggage.
Yeah.
And that at that time I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
That was a concept that like rerouted my brain.
Yeah.
So that might be the number one practical nugget of knowledge that has really, really helped me, going forward. So how about you?
I think something that's such a gift from it is almost the osmotic nature of doing it. Like that we just spend so much time talking to people about their experience, not just as being a human, but being a dad. And I get this built-in sort of community, even if it's for moments at a time, that I feel so tied to, because it's like, it's rare that someone ever says something that I'm like, I don't know what that feels. What is that? Or like, that's unique to you,
Right.
So I think, one, it's just kind of this wonderful way to feel some communion with people around something that you're going through too, which I'm really thankful for. I think it really helps for me not to feel lonely. I think too, we say this a lot, but there's the selfish angle too, where it's like, if no one even listened to these, and we know that millions, potentially billions at this point with the 200
That's true.
episode. We're pushing that at some point.
Yep.
But even if nobody listened to it, it would just be, I would have gained so much just from that. Just sitting to talk to friends and authors and thinkers and therapists. It's like selfishly, I've just onboarded a lot of information that way, in just a selfish way. It's like, I love that other people hear it too. And then I think, the quote that I probably think the most about, which is funny because it's also Stephen James, shout out to Stephen, is that idea that like you can only take your kids as far as you've gone yourself. I said that quote this week to a friend, and I'm like, it's those things that remind me there are these quotes and thoughts that are a part of my DNA now as a parent that have come from this podcast.
Yeah.
That mostly you said. Just to honor you.
I remember saying that to Stephen before we started.
And you're like, you could use that if you want.
And I remember him repeating it with tears in his eyes.
Yeah, you were like, listen, if you don't have material,
just go to that.
Just go to that.
Another thing, in a really, really practical way, is, for one, and I know that this was, maybe the original intent of the podcast itself. How much, if I take this podcast away, how much do I talk with another guy in my life about being a dad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the past 5 years, I mean, you and I had talked about being dads before, and that was a big impetus for the podcast. But if I take that away, it's just so much time that I'm devoting my thoughts and my energy toward my kids and my wife and being a dad and that's such a worthwhile thing to be pondering. And the podcast has been sort of this built-in sort of like, it's like putting a gym in your house. It's like,
that's a great way to say that. Yeah. Sorry, a guy named Jim. Yeah.
Sorry, James. Do you know who I'm talking about?
My dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a service he's offering in retirement now. He'll move in and he just kind of reminds you, like, hey, ponder the children. That's what he says.
That feels
he kind of whispers it, which I don't love.
Yeah.
Ponder the children.
Yeah, in his accent. I love that. I miss that about him, honestly.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
Okay, so let's have some fun here. What is the hardest that you've laughed? What are the moments you've laughed the hardest over these 5 years?
Oh, okay. So that reminds me of another thing I was thinking when you were talking. It was just laughing a lot.
I know.
I mean, just that. It's such a. Oftentimes, like you and I will get together to record like the ads, and I'll walk back to the house and I'll be like, it just felt so good to just laugh for 45 minutes.
We do love doing those ads.
Oh my gosh. Hardest, I mean, hands down, hardest I've ever laughed, which I guess this doesn't quite answer the question because it's, we weren't recording at the time, but it's our bird thing.
Oh, have we talked about this?
We have. I remember we talked about it on an episode.
Okay.
Probably like 100 episodes
just
ago.
Do it really quick, just to really. and listen, I have to preamble this and say, if this isn't funny to y'all, we expect that.
Totally. This is not something that I would expect. I wouldn't think you would even understand what we're even doing unless you were like here with us. You need to like spend a weekend with us. And then even if you grasp it, I would think 50-50 chance that you're like, find any humor in it.
So did it, listen, again, I have maybe the worst memory of anybody. Did it, I feel like it came around with the show.
Yeah.
Was it that episode?
Yes.
Show Baraka, right?
Show Baraka, yeah.
And
who's
somehow,
in Atlanta, and for some reason.
Do you know what I think it was? I think it was the photo. Because you remember he's like out, it's all those woods behind him.
Oh, okay.
And so here is how this bit has turned, is that John and I, unprompted, in a prep session. So as we're sitting and we're going to have, Johnny swim on like we just had. Okay, John will say, hey, let's make sure, something I'd love to ask him is this. And there will be a beat of silence. And this is then what happened. I can't do it. Okay. So, you guys.
So Burbank.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. So you must be seeing, I mean, you got gulls and the yellow-breasted. Well,
no. John. No. I'm sorry, guys. Mandy,
there's
forgive
such
us.
a visual aspect to it as well. If you had to put in a sentence, what is the joke?
It's that it is so unbelievably obtuse. It is like, why would you ask someone you probably don't know what the local bird and be so? And the other part that makes me laugh is the shame that we shame each other. So
there's three elements to it.
Yeah.
I think there's the like. It's so obtuse that you would even be bringing this up.
Yeah.
A.
Yeah.
B. It's why would you think it matters? In the joke, it's like this has direct impact to what we're then going to talk about. And then C, the main thing is the self shame as you correct yourself.
So okay, let me give a vignette.
We are losing.
No, just hold on. No, I'm going to land this. Pun intended. So Benfield, Australia, Hillsong. Okay, this is exciting. You guys are so it's Oceanside. I want to. Everything I'm thinking of is North American birds. Shoot. Okay, but seagulls. Yes. I'm sorry. Of course, seagulls. My gosh. And that is, you guys are Tasmania. Shoot. Golly. Is it a different? I mean, you've got to have pelicans. Of course. I'm so sorry. Of course, you guys have pelicans, and you guys are warm. No, it's winter. Oh my gosh, it's winter right now for you guys. It's warm here. Shoot, but still pelicans. I mean, this is it, and you just constant.
The phrase that gets me every time is like, "Oh my!" So you guys must. I mean, you must be seeing. Well, no, because
if we
we got to get off of this.
I know, but I just want to say one more. I gotta say one more thing. I don't know why
it's just the dumbest thing we've
you
ever
nailed it.
come
It's
up
like
with.
if we didn't, Jason, if we don't call the episode what we said earlier, where it's whatever the title we had earlier, the other thing would be in quotes. So you're seeing.
So you must be seeing. That's the thing. It's like
this can derail.
This has
me
got
so
to be.
hard.
This has got to be such a big part of your morning. Like let's address the elephant in the room. You've got robins that are migrating down.
So it'd be okay. So you've got your coffee. You're sitting on your porch. Oh my God, how loud at that point is the yellow-breasted warbler? Like, is it something where do you have to go inside? Is it just so loud that you're like, get a room? You know? Oh, I love that.
Okay.
We have to stop.
We got to move on.
We have to stop. I'm so sorry that y'all had to deal with that.
Nothing has made me laugh harder in the last couple years.
And you guys have to understand about something about John McLaughlin. One of the funniest people I know without competition. But getting you to really laugh is such an unbelievable accomplishment because, like, you do a lot of chuckles, a lot of smiles.
Right.
But when you really get laughing, it is like it's a joy that I don't really know in a lot of the rest of my life. And that is it. That is without a doubt.
That will get me.
Well, and I swear this is the last thought.
So Atlanta.
That's it.
That will just get me.
That's what I was about to say. It's the beginning. It's knowing that while we're prepping, there's going to be a moment where one of us takes a beat and goes, okay. So, and it's always this phrase. So Baltimore. And then I know, oh boy, here we go.
That's it. It's like the joke used to be a whole thing, and now it's distilled for us down to just that.
Yeah. The other joke that John always says, which is just a he and I joke that makes me laugh, is, well, it could be 45 minutes.
40 minutes. whenever we're prepping for an episode, and we feel like maybe we don't have quite enough. It's always like, I mean, and it can be 40 minutes.
It can be 40 minutes.
Which is, we've never done a 40 minute
I love that people
episode.
are hearing this because I feel like this is so nuanced.
Oh, man.
Okay, I'll say a few of mine, hardest I've laughed. Tony Hale's swimming story.
Yeah.
Tony
Hale is one of my favorite
I
people
will tell
on the
it to people randomly at dinners and stuff. Just like that story. It's the image of him just stopping in the pool and sort of, I don't know what about that. It is just like, do I have to do this?
And I've been in 1,000 swim meets in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Never once have I seen someone do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people who should, and you know they want to. I've never seen anyone actually just
like, I don't want to
be like change the course of their life,
literally and physically.
Yes.
I laughed at the Isaac Kirk lawn mowing, hitting the gravel and it's shooting it. I mean that we've seen a commercial now, the Progressive commercial, whatever. So you've seen it. That one kills me. Leanne Moore. So I was trying to think like, if there was an episode that I would say front to back might be the episode I laughed wholeheartedly the most, I really think it's Leanne's. Like I just remember
I was sweating.
I think that's what we call the episode. It's like I just was so
she's so funny.
Charles Eston, who's again, he's probably 20, 30 funniest people on the planet, was on Whose Line Is It Anyway, but just seeing a guy that's an assassin of humor. Like he has been trained to be funny. How quick he can go in and out of that is just and him, so heartfelt, and then bam, you're like, whoa, and then he's back.
You know what one of the moments was for me on mic, because my other answer was off mic, was every time we read people's brag sheets, we always ask, so how do you feel?
So glad you're telling this.
And Harrison Scott Key, I think it was his first time on, his answer was, why don't I have a pool? I thought that was the best answer that anyone has ever given to that question.
It was incredible.
You read this whole brag sheet, all the accomplishments, all the awards, all the books he's written, all that yada, yada, yada. So how do you feel after hearing that? Why don't I have a pool?
Oh, God, just so good.
So good.
What else did I have? Shay Mooney's Family Band. I remember that. And I remember that just really getting me in the giggle square. Like, just seeing him and imagining, that whole thing. And then of course, Moakler's story about. I mean, that's
what I was just thinking.
That story is an infamy to me of him playing the coffee shop and looking at the women and thinking, "Oh my gosh, these moms are," and they actually just like, "Would you please stop playing?" Actually,
yeah, you guys got to go back and listen to that story.
Drew Holcomb's.
And Drew Holcomb's one.
Those two live together to me.
Those are they're like a Ben Stiller movie of a story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because there's so much discomfort in those stories.
Yeah, Drew's where they had to tell the guy to stop practicing his piano because they were playing a concert 10 feet away from him.
2 feet away.
I mean, I also loved.
Brutal.
I've had John tell the story a lot in just normal life, but Acuff talking about his table tennis where they hit where the guy, the old men's coach had him sit on the floor and they hit on the floor to see if he actually would train him or not, which feels like a Napoleon Dynamite scene.
Yeah.
Those were some of the ones that I remembered.
Oh man, and there's so many that I'm forgetting.
Oh, I mean, the thing is, because it's you and me, we laugh at some point in every podcast, even in the poignant ones. There's some moment where we have like a little break of humor, but I don't know. Those were the ones as I read back. I was reading looking at the episodes. I was like, oh yeah, those are the moments that I remembered.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm missing. I know I'm missing a couple that we laughed really hard, and I'm really mad because I've scoured those episodes trying to remember. Like they're right on the tip of my brain, but I was like, I can't remember what they are. But I know there were a couple that listeners are going to be like, dude, y'all couldn't talk for like a minute in this one. Right. I don't know what those are. Okay, next subject. So we're all over the place, John. And I want to.
Let's do it.
This is poignant moments. Some would say precious moments.
I mean, the one that comes to mind, which it's not something that someone said. It was, which ironically, it's Kurt Thompson, which you could have probably taken anything that he said, but it was his spirit in the episode. Because I remember, I mean, it was a big deal for us to interview him. We'd read his books.
Yeah,
he's so revered and respected. When we have guests on who we don't know, you never know what those first few minutes. When it's remote, when you're like doing it on Zoom, those first few minutes are so charged because you're reading them, like their facial expression, their body language. You're just trying to get a vibe for like,
how's this gonna go?
What's the posture here? Like, is this going to be super serious? Are we on the same page in terms of like, can we weave in and out of humor and depth and all that kind of stuff? And I remember he was like brought to tears very early in the episode. And he was talking about hospitality and how welcoming he felt in those first few minutes. But he cried a few times, and just his, like, when he was just talking about Jesus, just started crying. And I mean that I think about it, every week. Just somebody like Kurt Thompson who has been doing his thing. He's in that world. He's writing books in this space, the Christian kind of world, and he still just is brought to tears when he just talks about Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're. I had a few of these. I remember Kirk Herbstreit saying, your dad, that his dad gave him just enough of himself to make him want more.
Mm.
I mean, that thought is so intense.
Yeah.
Sometimes I this is a non sequitur a little bit, but I think sometimes, like, this is a weird thing to say, so stay with me, but I do think about this. I think one of the things that's really interesting about being a dad who is trying to be available and connected to your kids is that when I watch movies or read books like Kirk's, where they talk about the distance between them and them dad, and how, like, all I did my whole life was try to make my dad happier. Even in his death, I found myself like, and I'm like, I think something that when a dad is really sort of doing his best and it's like working, it's almost like there's an underappreciation for how good it is.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I'm not saying I feel that. I know, Mike, but it is one of the weirdest ironies to me that so much of the world, especially in the artistic space, are men who, Bono says this, fueled by this kind of like, I never had the approval of my dad, so I spend copious amounts of my life thinking about my dad.
Right. Yeah.
And yet, the dads who really show up and deliver, if you sat with their kids, they'd be like, I love my dad. He's the best.
Yeah.
Sort of like full stop. And you're like, isn't it interesting that dynamic?
Well, it reminds me of this Tom Petty documentary where someone at some point, I can't remember who, some record exec says, bring me any mega rock star and I'll show you a guy whose dad told him he wasn't enough.
Yep.
And I remember being so angry with my dad in that moment. like Mike,
the best
McLaughlin,
songs. You and your functional dadding.
Your constant approval and love
and support has ruined my career.
Has hindered me. No, on that note, it's funny because if I'm really honest, really truly honest, I think about what you just laid out. Maybe daily these days, like in recent months. And I think I know the right way is to be there for my kids and love them and be available and just be there. But I'm like, if I could back it off a little bit and then they would be super nice to me and love me like
they would want me
outwardly,
so much more. Yeah.
It's tempting.
If they knew how bad this could be, and how much more
Can I just give them a taste of, like, just take it away for a minute?
Yeah. And now you know.
But I can't, because then what if I took it away and then they're like, yeah, we're fine.
That's great.
We're good.
We love this.
Yeah.
Another one which we've talked about, but, Mike Donahue talking about the stay interested, how that's something that I think about a lot. That was a poignant moment for me of, like, we talked about how he said he sits with parents that he feels like have kids that they're still close to and really have great relationships with. And he said basically when he asks, like, how have you gotten to this place? How do you have these great relationships with your kids even now as they're adults? He's like, we just stay interested in them. I just think that's great.
Which is so tricky at this time.
Yeah.
Which I hate to be beating this drum all the time. But this is just where I am as a dad. Because your kids, when middle school hits or whenever it happens, they don't, it's tough to stay interested. I'm interested, but it's tough to keep asking because they don't want you to ask. They're so over all the questions.
Yeah.
But you got to just keep going. I'm thinking long term.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about Chris Hadfield talking about the stars in his feet. That was such a cool moment. He said he was doing the not moonwalking. Spacewalk.
Well, we don't know that he didn't moonwalk.
Touche. He could have moonwalked while he spacewalked.
Yeah.
But that was an image that I think about a lot randomly.
That episode was one where I was like, the whole time I was like, I can't believe we're talking to this guy that's done this stuff.
I know.
You remember when he was talking early? He was like, yeah, my early stuff was like I was flying like F-14s and speaking Russian fluently. I'm like, who are you? What do you mean? Crazy.
It just felt like God was like, whoops.
Yeah.
No, just keep him
too
going.
much.
Yep.
Too much on that guy.
Who's the next Dave? Yeah, pull that out of Dave and let's give it to this Chris guy. He needs. We slipped on that one a little bit up here. I love Barry Dean talking about that he started a wheelchair company or wheelchair assist company just so his daughter would have a more comfortable life in a wheelchair. I mean, that to me is one of the most powerful. I think I cried a lot in that episode actually. Michael Phillips. I mean that episode to me, he and wait, what was the other one that was like that we just talked about their backstory? Oh, David
Nasser. Yeah. That's one of those two episodes are maybe the most like on the edge of my seat.
It was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, I think, I think with David's, he said this maybe on mic, but he definitely told us, hey, if we talk about my backstory, it's going to take the whole time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, no, we'll navigate it and it'll be fine. And he was like, okay. And of course he was right. That
was the whole episode.
And Michael's was so interesting because it was like, he didn't say that, but we had just prepped the book, an educational form that he had written. But he would say these asides during the interview that we were like, no, wait, just tell us that story. And so, an hour and a half in, we didn't even talk about the book. Like we didn't really even interview him about his life because it was just his story was so crazy. I actually tell his story. That's another one, like at weird dinner parties, something will come up about that world. And I'll be like, I got to tell you about this guy we had on Dadville. And it's just his story's insane. And then my last thought in this was Ted Danson. I think this is so profound. Talking about that his fame had to go somewhere, which is why he started his nonprofit, and I just thought that was such an emotionally intelligent thing for him early in his acting career as he was having success to go, I got all this stuff coming at me. I got to take it somewhere because if it resides in me, I'm going to go crazy. I was like, what a wise thing to do, that early in your life doing something.
And that he has really championed that for decades.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some
that's exactly
whim.
right.
My last one is Miles Adcock's. I think about this very, very often when he said it's not about the rip, it's about the repair.
Yes.
I mean, thank God he said that to me because that definitely, I need that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. It is profound. I think Andy and I talked about this the other day with our kids. I'm like, I think what I watch probably more than anything, and I think everybody has their eyes on different things as parents, but something I'm very, very, very attentive to with our family is just the spirit of the family. Like, how is our spirit? Like, does it feel good? Does it feel like everybody's in good communion with each other? Is there anger? And I think especially toward Annie and I, like how,
between you and Annie?
No, the kids toward us.
The kids toward you.
Just like, and I think that's something that's really what I'm thinking about. It's like, are we in repair? Like, I know we had a little scuffle this morning. Have we repaired? Like, are the kids, do they want to sit next to us? Do they want to talk to us about their day?
Yeah.
And that's something I think that's sort of it's another way to say that, like that idea, like, have we repaired what has happened?
Yeah.
Because you can feel it. Like, the kids are happy to see you and, like they want to snuggle up on the couch while you're watching the movie or whatever, Okay, how about we're all over the place, guys. Stay with us. Favorite last question answers. So for a long time, which we've kind of changed now because we just did it for so long, we asked the two questions.
Yeah.
What would you want someone to say, or you want your kids to say at your funeral, right?
Yeah, that was the last one. What's the one thing you want your kids to know?
To know, that's right.
And then what do you want
your
kids to say at your funeral?
And I think, I had two answers which we talked about. We can each do, we can each take it. I think the one that I thought there was a lot of poignant ones, but they mostly we realized one of the reasons I think we changed the question was because they it's sort of, the funeral one changes, but the other one
was all the same.
It's kind of the same answers, yeah.
Which is sweet and great.
It's amazing. But at some point you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going to happen here. And we need everybody to listen to the very last second.
Yeah, we do.
So, but I loved Andrew Peterson's answer about the funeral, like, what do you want your kids to say? And he said, I liked him.
Yeah.
That crushed me. I remember when he said that, I was like, I can't talk right now.
Yeah.
I thought that was so beautiful.
Why do you think, because I remember feeling that way as well. And I wonder, why is that? Because obviously everybody says, we loved him, or like love is, we're almost like numb to that answer.
Yeah.
But him saying that he would hope that his kids would say, we really liked him.
Yeah, because I think, you know what it is? I don't think you have to like somebody to love them.
Right.
You know, and I think to like them is such a different thing.
It's almost deeper in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey friends, Annie F. Downs here. I want to tell you about my brand new kids book releasing February 18th called Where Did TJ Go? 2.5 years ago, my nephew TJ was born with a genetic disorder and lived just 56 days. As my sister and brother-in-law tried to figure out a book about loss that they could read to TJ's older brother, Sam, they quickly realized that the right one didn't yet exist. So my sister Tatum and I wrote it. Where Did TJ Go is a story of grief, but really it's a story about Jesus and heaven. This is the book we hope no family has to pick up, but the book so many actually need. You can pre-order your copies now wherever you love to buy books, and I'd be honored to sign a book plate in memory of the babies or children you or the people in your village have lost. You can find all of the details at wheredidtjgo.com.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which you have to say, which just ruined us, which was so funny.
Oh, the Ben Fielding false alarm.
False alarm. I just was like, we have had so many people in the show and no one has said that. False alarm.
It was great. You know, Taylor Goldsmith, his answer I thought was really interesting to the what's the one thing you want. At that time, they just had their son Gus to know. And he said, I would want him to know, I would want him to really have a passion for reading. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Because he said, if you have a real passion for reading, I think he said something to the effect of like, you're like you can only have such a bad day. That's not the way to say it. Your day can only get so bad or something like that. It's just like, it's this other world that you're privy to.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Which I thought was a really interesting answer.
I definitely didn't see that coming, yeah. It's funny, as I was going through notes, this is so random, but I'm glad you brought him up. I've forgotten that his dad, do you remember he said his dad sang for like Tower of Power or some random band like that for a few years, which was totally out of nowhere to me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a fun one. Most cringeworthy moments on Dadville. So I want to clarify this. You and I, like things we said, not what guests said. Okay,
right. We've got some of those as well. I mean, mine is obvious, Dave. You bring this up just to get me to tell the story. Can I give context
to what you're about to say? This is something that really has been a mark on your conscience. Like it's like it's hysterical to know how much this has bothered you.
I know. So early. It was Ted Danson.
I kind of wish we'd videoed it because I would love to see your response.
I would hate to watch that video. So what happened was I had been doing my research. I found this. I was like on his IMDb, and there was like a link to like a movie that it was like his daughter had directed it, according to this page. And he was either in it or he produced it or something. This is like a legit page. It seemed legit. So anyway, I put that in the notes as like, let's ask about that.
Because that's obviously a great thing to ask on this podcast.
You're working with your daughter. And then to like even raise the ante, the thing that he had said, he had just finished a thought that I was like, oh my gosh, he's teeing me up perfectly to ask about this. And I was like, I said something like, oh, so given that, I mean, it must have felt great to work with your daughter on, and I named the movie. He was like, and of course he's like, I've never heard that movie. He's like, well, that didn't happen. And the thing that I wish if we had him on, instead of episode 10 or whatever it was, episode 110, I would have been like, what? It's on the internet. It would have been fine. I would have laughed.
That is not the route you chose.
In the moment, I was like, well, no, it happened. And then you're like, I remember, wait, am I arguing with Ted Danson about a movie that I'm saying he made, and he's like,
not,
it didn't
And
happen.
I remember thinking like, oh, okay, John doubling down. I respect this. And it just kind of took a 30 seconds to a minute of kind of like, okay, well, no, I'm pretty sure. Okay, well, it says, and I was like, man, this is really interesting to see that John has chosen.
Oh my gosh.
But
it's the only thing that I sent an email to the guy who was editing at the time, and I asked him to cut it out.
Yeah.
And he just like didn't get my email in time or whatever.
I told him, actually. I followed
your
email and said, do not cut that out. This is a power grab.
Which is fine. It should be in there.
You know what mine was? I laugh about this so hard now. Me trying so hard to relate to Nate Bargatze about me doing stand-up shows. I don't really go back and listen to episodes at all, but somebody the other day was like, oh, this was really good. You should listen to it. And I was like, I can't, because all I'm going to hear is me like, I've done stand-up shows too. Have you found, Nate, that when you do a show, it's the crowd? And I'm just like, Dave, just don't do this. This is one of the biggest comics in the world, and you're trying to, from the 20-something stand-up shows you've done over your whole life, be like, have you found that when you're doing those in front, what was your Bridgestone? Okay, mine was a little smaller. City Winery when I did. It's people though, isn't it? It's just people. But the thing, and I've thought about that every now and then. I'm like, I just don't even want to think about that. How embarrassing that is, that I'm just like so badly trying to relate to now the biggest comic in the world.
Biggest comic in the world.
Like, is my experience. My ears. I mean, it would literally be like Nate Bargatze having me on Nate Land and going, Dave, so I've done like 2 open mics with some songs I've written. They're okay. Have you found that when you're playing, and you forget the chorus, and it's like, oh, okay, that's you. Okay, yeah, no, we can talk about this. Let's talk about this. I'm just like, I can't believe that I chose to do that.
I'm sure I have some more as well.
One, we'll just leave that alone. How about let's do this subject, off mic memories. Actually, this actually goes into this. Watch me bridge the great divide here. Also, almost cringeworthy, which ended up to be my top 3 moments of all time that I enjoyed, was when we had McConaughey on. And we have, he gives us the time warning. He's like, hey, guys, I got about 5 more minutes. And I had told myself, if I ever meet this guy, which I don't know why I thought this would happen, but it did. I want to ask him about A Time to Kill. Yeah. His monologue at the end, which is just, to me, some of the best acting I've ever seen, still to this day. So, I remember texting you because it was remote, and hey, you cool? Yeah, you like, go for it. And I was like, hey, because he hadn't, we hadn't gotten any don't talk about, do talk about. It was just like, have him on, talk about the book. Yeah. Which we love to do, because that book is phenomenal. Green Lights. And so, I'm like, this is my moment. So, I kind of tee it up. Listen, Time to Kill is one of my favorite movies. What an ending to this movie. Can you just walk me through what it took to do that scene? I've just always wanted, I'm doing my thing. I'm just wanting, and what you couldn't see listening, the listener, I mean, you could, John, is that his head dropped and he kind of stared at the floor. And I remember thinking, and John, I remember we make eyes and you're like, what have you done? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking he's going to look up good guys, say, I don't really want to talk about it.
I'm here to talk about the book.
I'm here to talk about the book.
On.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Can we not? And that, I really think in all of Dadville, those 3 seconds are the longest seconds that I've ever experienced. Because I was like, what did you do? And what happens is he looks up. And I remember that morning. And I was like, oh, it was like it went from absolute terror to just jubilant joy. Yeah. But I was going to say, it goes into this next thing of off-mic memories. One of my favorite memories of like off-mic meme after or before the podcast had actually started is thinking, did we call or did you text? I can't remember. I think we called, didn't we? After that interview, the McConaughey interview, did we text?
I can't remember. I feel like we called.
Okay, and I just remember you saying either in text or call. You're like, you realize he said your name.
He
said your name twice. And then me going, I do remember that, because I remember him being like, well, Dave, and I was like, oh my god, he said my name. and then I realized, and then for me to clock that it was like, oh yeah, he didn't actually ever say John. It was just unbelievable. That made me laugh so hard.
one of a memorable off mic moment was actually Harrison Scott Key. We were so excited to have him on, and it was a unique get because you were reading his book.
Yes.
We were on vacation.
Yes.
And you were laughing hysterically the whole time.
Yep.
So then I read it, laughing hysterically. We're like, this guy is amazing. We got to get him on. You just DM'd him on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have him on. And at some point, this is the only time this has ever happened. I'm sitting on my porch. I've just gone for a run that morning. It was a beautiful morning. I've got my coffee. Amy's sitting there. What a great moment. And then I get a text from you like, hey, are you jumping on? And I was like, I look at my calendar. Harrison Scott Key is supposed to be right now.
I forgot about that.
You remember this?
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to this guy. I don't know him. And so I'm like, I ran back to my shed. I jump on and I'm like all frazzled. That's the only time that's ever happened.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
What was the episode where they made us run to each other's thing? Do you remember that? That's a funny memory to me.
Yes.
Who was this? I don't believe y'all.
That was Jonathan from Bible Project.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was my.
That was an off mic, I think.
That was the. My computer came up during the interview, I think, and said like, "Do you want to update?" And I said no, or I said remind me later, or something like that. So it was like, oh, we'll do more than remind you.
We'll just do it.
When this 15 minutes goes up, or hour, or whatever, my computer just shut down, just mid-interview.
Oh, that's right.
It just like went dark. And so, thankfully, I live right across the street from Dave. So I'm like, this is going to take forever. It's going to, reboot and then it's going to update. And, so I just came over here.
But I remember him being like, oh, you aren't kidding. That took him 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Another one I had was going to interview Amy Grant at her house and Craig Melvin being there.
Yes.
And him being
that was such a funny moment.
She was like, hey, Craig. And he was like, actually, I know you guys.
We were just on the
podcast. I loved that moment. And also, I mean, this is to me like Hall of Fame moments. We got, I think he may have actually said this on the podcast now, but remember at the end of his interview, he said, quote unquote, this went a lot better than I thought.
Yes.
I mean, I just remember that being so funny because it was hysterical and like, well, what did you think? But also like, oh, we nailed it. Because you remember like that was one of those interviews where Jason had gone through like all the proper channels.
Right.
It was kind of a big deal of like, Craig doesn't do a ton of these, but they had vetted it and sort of been like, okay, he said he'll do it.
Yeah.
So it was like, I remember as we prepped for it, it was like, this is we've done a lot of official ones, but that was one that was like, it's sort of like being judged a little bit. It's
right.
Sort of, and I remember Jason saying, hey, if it goes well, there's opportunities for other interviews.
Yeah.
And I just remember like him being like, man, that was, I was like, what did you expect was going to happen? Okay. So, I'm calling this, closing thoughts. Did you have any else you wanted to add before I say
You know what? Hang on. I feel like I did. Oh, yeah. I did want to say I really love having the wives on. Those are some of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
And here's why. I mean, for multiple reasons. But I don't know if you feel this way. I honestly feel like, and this sounds cheesy, but it's true. I feel like I'm like my full self when Amy is there.
Yeah.
Like if it's the two of us having any kind of conversation with somebody, I'm like, this is the full me,
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of my favorite moments. And we try not to go to that well too often.
Yeah.
But I'm always excited when we do one of those.
It definitely, even last night, we were hanging with some friends, and we hang with a lot of friends all the time doing fun things. And
I was just doing family time last night.
And I was telling a story, and Annie's like, no. No, it's like, okay, yeah, no, that's right, Tuesday night. And so Tuesday night we get there, she's like, no, they came over. I'm like, they came over. And I feel like, there is something to having your spouse with you, especially with the way my brain works. It's kind of like, no, that's, no, okay, then. No.
Mine is always like we go to a restaurant and I'm like, I'll take the kale salad with salmon, and Amy's like, you don't like that. you got that last time. You didn't like it. I was like, oh, okay. What did I? You got this. You really like that. Okay, I'll have that.
Okay, fastest non sequitur in the history of time. I was thinking about us hanging with our friends. We went down this was such a fun little adventure. We went down. I have a friend that we have a place in Leapers Fork, as I've said before, and my buddy Franz, who South African friend of ours, who manages our property, kind of helps with stuff down there. He works full time for another guy who has a bunch of acreage and stuff, and they're doing this really cool music stuff down there now. So he's been asking me for years to come down. I was like, all right, we're going to go. So we took our friends because they were like, what's a fun little natural adventure? It's like, let's go. Let's drive down Leapers, this barn that's been retrofitted. It's amazing. All these music people were there. Walk in, because literally as we're walking in, Annie says to them, because they're friends of ours, but we haven't known them for long. She's like, guys, I have no clue how this is going to go. I don't know what this is. Dave doesn't know what it is. We love Franz. We trust Franz. We just know it's kind of like the guy who owns all this property. You know, he's got $1 billion, but he loves music, and he's just trying to create these really amazing music experiences. But I wasn't playing. We were just going to sort of, Franz wanted to show us what they do.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people there, but I see a bass, stand-up bass line, and it's Scott Mulville's bass. And I was like, babe, Scott's here. So, of course, he gets up. As he's entering the song, he's like, you know, sometimes I want to, and Dave Barnes, I didn't know you were going to be here. I love you. This is really awesome. You know, so it was fun. All I'm saying this. How do you, so I got up and played.
Oh, you did?
They had me get up. Do you have this is the fastest, you like that, or you kind of like,
No, I don't like it. And I feel like in those moments, I'm like, this is where I feel like guitar players win.
Yes.
And piano players don't win. Because the piano, if there's a grand piano at center stage and they're like, do you want to come up and sing a song? I mean, I don't want to come up and sing a song. But if they're like, get up here, John, then I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. If I can't do this, what the heck have I been doing my whole life?
Okay, sorry. Again, I've watched me land this plane. I'm actually going to impress myself because I really am going through this. So I'm sitting back there, and what happens to me at this age is I start getting so insecure about lyrics because I'm like
remembering.
I'm gonna, because I hadn't played in a minute. Yeah. So like that's something that's one of my, I got to remember. And so I'm literally back there going, oh gosh, God, give me you. I know these lyrics. And so I walked outside. I was like, okay, I do know it. I was like, okay, all good. What made it so fun is I was like, Scott, come play these songs. Like, yeah. So he grabs his bass. It was so fun. It was great. Yeah. But Annie, this is where I'm going to your point about, Annie is going, what do you mean you're not? Because I was like, that's just, and my friend's like, oh, it's like, and she's like, Dave, you are going up there and playing songs.
Oh, because you were saying, I'm not going to go up.
Yeah. And she was like, having her there, she's like, no. Literally, it was like my mom. She's like, this is not a conversation you're going to play songs. I was like, all right. And then it was great. But it's like, it is funny when you have your spouse, that point about feeling whole, that if she hadn't been there, I probably would have tried to snake my way out of it.
Yeah.
One, I was just curious if you like doing that because it is a weird, it's like for me, which I bet it's with you too. It's like once I've decided to do it, it's all, and of course it's what I do. I'm good at it. It's going to be great. Yeah. But it's like that little moments before I'm like, I didn't come out here wanting to play.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm doing it and I'm so glad I did and it was great and everybody loved it. But if Annie hadn't been there, I'd have probably been like, we got a thing and it's and even last night she literally says she's like, I'm so proud of you. And I was like a 5-year-old. She's like, I'm so proud of you for getting up there and doing that thing you love more than anything else in the world that God has given you.
Yeah.
Good
for you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So closing thoughts. Here are my, I think of all the things, I would say a couple things are my closing thoughts about this whole thing. I think one, I love that we get, I think about John Mark Comer. I think about Harrison Scott Key. These people that I didn't know before. And it's one thing to meet people. Bruce Hornsby comes on, you meet him. Hey, I'm Dave, this is John, But when you actually then go on to have friendships with people, that to me is probably one of the two greatest gifts of this, is to be able to sit with people that you have so much respect for and interest in. And at the end of the podcast, you're like, oh my gosh, hey, let's exchange info. And now those guys I've spent time with outside of here. And that's just, I love that. I love that it's become an avenue for you and I actually get to know people.
Yeah.
That, and I think what I'm trying to say is you probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Right.
There's not a venue for that friendship really, other than you go to a conference or I go to Harrison's book readings here in town or something,
Yeah.
And even then, there's not, you're trying to sort of find a place to relate, know. So I'd say that's one. And, too, at the risk of just unbelievable amount of cheesiness, just to hang with you. It's just such, it's fun. I feel like our goal all those years ago, or really what it came out of, was us going, we kind of talk about this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We should talk about this with other people too.
Yeah.
And I think it's something I'm just really thankful for, because I think, we've talked about this on the pod, but I think having male friendships as you get older is just really tough, and I think to be able to sit with you over all these years and do these things is just such a gift. I'm so thankful for it,
I feel the exact same. I mean, the amount of texts that you and I have sent each other that have just said, how great is this? It's so funny. And I'm glad that we still do. We don't send them at the clip that we used to, because I think eventually it's like...
The guests have just not been as good.
Right. But in the beginning, I remember thinking, okay, John, don't... Like, I was purely excited about it. I was purely excited that it would be, we're going to hang. Mm-hmm. And one of the tough things about male friendships when you get older is if you're not working together.
Yeah.
Or if you don't live, in the same neighborhood, or your kids don't go to the same school, whatever, there's just not a lot of margin in life to maintain those friendships that have no other connection other than just the friendship. So I was excited about that. I'm like, this is something that Dave and I will work on together. Don't run this through the like conveyor belt of baggage that you run all your career stuff through. Just let this stay pure. And I feel like 5 years in, I really feel that way. I feel like I have, for better, for worse, I don't look at how many listeners we have. I don't look at any of the numbers. I just want to make great conversations.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much. And like you're saying, we've just had, even if we weren't even recording this stuff, it's just fun. I have such great memories. And I think there have been some things that have, there have been some things that guests have said that I'm like, I totally disagree with that.
Yeah.
Or have made me grow. And, there've been moments of every shade.
That's well said.
So I'm just really, really, really grateful for it.
Yeah.
Can't believe we get to do it.
Yeah, I love you. I'm glad we
love
get to
you
do
too.
This. Really
Listener, we love you too.
Love you too. I think, and then finally, your thoughts on robbers, just to wrap up.
Tight 30 minutes on robber.
Okay, so you're Baltimore.
Okay.
Dadville.